You are bored. Not the kind of bored where you have run out of things to scroll through. The deep kind. The kind where the afternoon stretches out in front of you like a blank wall and your brain starts chewing on itself. Now imagine feeling that without a phone, without a screen, without a book, a podcast, a playlist, or a single piece of entertainment designed for you. Just you, a fire, a few dozen people you have known your entire life, and the open sky. For roughly 300,000 years, that was the situation, and your ancestors did not go insane. They did not sit in silence staring at rocks. They developed something so rich, so layered, and so deeply human that modern neuroscientists are only now beginning to understand why it worked as well as it did. Here is what boredom actually is. It is not the absence of stimulation. Researchers define it as a mismatch between the stimulation you have and the stimulation your brain is searching for. Your brain is a prediction machine that needs input to model the world. When input drops below a certain threshold, it gets restless. It starts scanning for something, anything to process. That restlessness is boredom. And it turns out that restlessness is one of the most productive forces in human history. So what did your ancestors do with it? The first and most powerful answer is storytelling. Not passive consumption of someone else's story. Active, participatory, improvisational storytelling around a fire. Anthropologist Polly Weissner of the University of Utah spent years documenting the conversational life of the Ju Huan San people of the Kalahari, one of the most extensively studied hunter-gatherer groups on Earth. She published a landmark study in 2014 in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that compared daytime and nighttime conversations. Daytime talk, she found, was dominated by practical matters, food, tools, complaints, conflict. But at night, around the fire, something shifted. Over 80% of nighttime conversation was narrative, stories, not just retelling events, but crafting them, shaping them, performing them with voices, gestures, pauses, and audience participation. Weissner described these firelight hours as a cognitive and social gymnasium. The brain was working hard, tracking characters, predicting outcomes, reading emotional cues in the storyteller's voice. The audience was not passive. They called out, asked questions, laughed, gasped. Boredom was not just killed, it was metabolized into something that built social bonds, transmitted knowledge, and expanded the imaginative range of every person sitting in that circle. This is why you feel something shift inside you when someone tells a great story. Your nervous system recognizes it. It has been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years. The second answer is play. And not just children's play, adult play. Your ancestors played well into adulthood in ways modern industrialized cultures have almost entirely abandoned. Anthropologist Stuart Brown, founder of the National Institute for Play, has documented play behavior across dozens of hunter-gatherer societies. Wrestling, racing, throwing games, music, dance, imitation games, elaborate jokes. Play was not considered frivolous. It was woven into the daily rhythm of life the way eating and sleeping were. But the most striking form of play was music. Archaeological evidence from sites like Holy Fels Cave in Germany, where a vulture bone flute was discovered dating back at least 40,000 years, suggests that musical instrument making was happening very early in our species' history. Archaeologist Nicholas Conrad of the University of Tübingen, who led the excavation, argued that music played a central role in the social cohesion of early modern human groups. When a group makes music together, heart rates synchronize. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, is released. Pain thresholds rise. The group becomes neurologically more unified. Boredom sent your ancestors to the flute. The flute rebuilt the tribe. The third answer is craft, the long, slow, deeply satisfying work of making something with your hands. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found ochre, a red pigment, that had been ground, mixed, and stored in abalone shells roughly 100,000 years ago. This was not food. This was not survival equipment. This was pigment for decoration. Beads made from shells have been found at sites across Africa and the Levant, dating back 130,000 years. Your ancestors were making jewelry, mixing paint, carving bone, engraving geometric patterns onto rocks. These were not just idle hobbies. Researchers now understand that fine motor engagement, the kind that comes from grinding pigment, threading a bead, carving a figure, activates a deep reward loop in the brain. Your prefrontal cortex quiets. The default mode network, the part of your brain that churns anxiously through problems when underoccupied, calms down. Flow state. The same state modern people chase in pottery classes and woodworking shops and knitting circles. Your ancestors lived there for hours every day. And then there is the fourth answer, the one nobody talks about. Rest. Real, unscheduled, guilt-free rest. Not sleep, not productivity in disguise. Just lying in the grass and watching clouds shift, feeling the warmth of a fire on your face, letting your mind wander without trying to redirect it anywhere useful. James Soosman, an anthropologist who has spent decades with the Juhonsi San of Namibia, and whose book Work documents their relationship with time and labor, noted that these groups worked roughly 15 to 20 hours per week to meet their material needs. The rest of the time was their own, and they used it in ways that look to modernize like laziness, but are neurologically anything but. The wandering mind is a creative mind. The brain in rest mode is solving problems, consolidating memories, building social models, and generating the kind of associative thinking that produces insight. Boredom, for your ancestors, was not a problem to be solved. It was a signal. It said, you have space right now. Use it to be more human. So let us reconstruct an afternoon. 50,000 years ago. The hunt is done, the fire is lit, the afternoon is open. Two people are sitting close together working on a cord, twisting plant fibers between their palms in long rhythmic pulls. Someone nearby is humming. A child is doing an exaggerated impression of an elder trying to catch a fish, and the elder is laughing the hardest. Someone is telling a story about the time a hyena wandered into camp and stole a child's sleeping bundle. The story gets bigger with every telling. Nothing remarkable is happening. Everything remarkable is happening. Now bring that into your own life. You reach for your phone the moment you feel the first tremor of boredom. You fill every quiet gap. You cannot sit in an empty room without audio. And the research is clear on what this costs you. A 2014 study published in Science by Timothy Wilson of the University of Virginia found that people would rather give themselves mild electric shocks than sit alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes. Your ancestors would have found that incomprehensible. The boredom they felt was the same restlessness you feel, but they had no mechanism to instantly suppress it, so instead they turned it into stories, into music, into craft, into laughter, into the slow, patient work of making something that did not exist before. You are bored. For 300,000 years, that was the beginning of something remarkable.